Are you ready?
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Cast Ups. Um, yeah, how do we start this off today, guys?
You normally introduce everyone.
Oh, I mean, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. Anyways, I'm your host for today. My name is Wale, and we have um, James, aka Eisenberg, from Breaking Bad, for those that don't notice. And then we also have Harry Potter, Barnaby. All right.
Hair's a bit long for that, isn't it?
Not quite right at the moment. Need to cut it short and to get the true resemblance.
Yeah, man. All right. So, how do we start today, guys? How was your day, first of all? Let's start with how your day was. How was
All
work?
good.
Yeah, just busy
Any
fixing
challenge on
problems.
client sites?
Just things not working.
As usual.
Got a mystery of some servers which won't resolve their names, which is more just ops side, and so it's going and talking to networking teams to try and find out what's going on. But there's nothing I can do to directly fix it. It's just somebody else needs to fix something for me in the background, which is a lot of the job I find most of the time.
That's
Don't know
very
if you guys.
similar to what I've got to do. I have to. I was moving where a Vault SSH namespace was going to be, moving it up to a parent namespace, and nothing had permissions. So I got myself more permissions, and then I asked. Then Terraform didn't have more permissions, so then I had to get Terraform more permissions, and that was most of my day, just trying to get some more Vault permissions. Namespaces, not always the best thing, but they can be useful.
Is getting permissions quick at least?
I just have to ask a guy and persuade him that what I'm saying makes sense and what I actually need.
And no tickets required?
No.
Wow,
This
interesting.
client is Sprint to the letter, so it's like Sprint in a I would call unuseful way, but I don't want to say too much. Well, it's I suppose let's explain that because I may actually get in trouble. They do Sprint. That's all about stats and all about the numbers at the end. So you want to make sure that you don't pick up too much work at the start and all your tickets are done at the end, even if that means that tickets that aren't 100% finished get closed and then just created again in the new sprint.
Ooh, that's a nice
Which
way of. So
I
that
can
means
understand why you would do it, but it's
it just
Makes the
means
graphs look pretty, I assume.
yeah, your team will always be like meeting their deliverables. That's good.
but
On
there'll always
paper.
be more tickets.
On paper. That's nice.
Yeah. Should we talk about? Well, how was your day?
The usual. Fun. Problem solving, as always. Trying to set up Redshift with Terraform. It's yeah, it's interesting. Using module and yeah, I need to find out how to like know how to do security groups within the client side. I mean, it's a bit weird, but it's yeah, we're getting there. So yeah,
It would
um,
be easy if it wasn't for the client.
I know, right? I could just no rule at all. Um, yeah. So let's talk about Terraform today, actually. Our favorite topic, actually, Terraform. Okay, so we're gonna start with the blog. I think recently they released a news in regards to them changing, making some changes
You
or
should
improvements to the free tier.
you should sound more exciting. This is big news for people that actually like want to use free tier.
True. Let me just put that website up real quick.
Because
Ah,
the
there you
big
go.
thing, I think the big thing they've added is, unless I've read it wrong, they've added Sentinel to free tier.
That would be nice, you know. Policy. Hold on.
Policy as code, which must be Sentinel. Like they didn't say Sentinel, they call it policy as code, but that's Sentinel, isn't it?
Well, you can use OPA instead now.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it says policy as
Oh,
code.
yeah. If you read down policy as code with Hashicorp, Sentinel, and OPA.
So I think that was last year's Hashicorp was one of their big sort of talking points. Like you can now use OPA for this instead of Sentinel. And if you haven't used either before, I don't think there's a particular benefit of using one over the other. If you've used OPA or are using OPA elsewhere in your organization, it would be nice because then you kind of have consistency of language across your environment. But they functionally do
OPA
the same thing. It's open
OPA
policy
hits
agent.
it hits containers and stuff as well, doesn't it? So if you want to use
You can use it.
Kubernetes or Docker and
Yeah.
stuff, it's more. It would be useful. It's more useful because you can use it for something else.
It's more versatile. You can build, I think, an ingress controller for Kubernetes with OPA and do stuff like that, as well as your sort of Terraform policies as code. So it has a much wider reach.
Maybe a good demo at some point to build the same policy in Sentinel OPA and just see benefits and problems.
I think it's a syntactical whatever difference, but I haven't got hands on with it, so there may be some weird little under the hood things that you won't really find until you get sort of deep in.
Well, are you doing your tier upgrade live on stream?
I'm not doing the tier upgrade. I'm just seeing if I can see anything nice. No, I'm
If you
still
haven't done the tier upgrade, you won't be able to see anything. Oh no, you have done the tier upgrade.
You need.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, migrate to new free right at the top.
Oh, there. Yeah, I skipped that part.
Yeah, that is how you migrate, and then you activate the new plan.
Oh, one policy set. Wow, they even
Yeah, so
limited
you
the
get
policies. Lol.
yeah, but it's also limited by resources now, so you can only create 500 resources. Like that's the reason why I'm like, maybe it's not worth clicking that button because you're limited by the amount of resources.
Are you
What was the
gonna?
previous limit?
I can't remember what the limit used to be. Like no, it wasn't because it didn't used to limit resources. It limited on users, I think.
Yeah.
Seems an odd
Yeah.
way to do it, to limit on users.
We never had
It-
resource limits, but then again, like as an individual, are you really gonna be like spinning up anything over 500 in one go?
if you have the well, I mean, Minecraft providers span up a lot of resources, but if you're going, I mean, you've already spun up a fifth of that.
It depends what you're managing. Some people use it to manage containers and stuff as well. So if you're using something like that, you could very easily get to that. And depending on how efficiently you write your network rules, I can imagine them just gobbling up resources quietly in the background.
Then if you used Terraform Cloud to manage something that wasn't paid, so if you used it to manage like a local estate or something, you're then because like if you're managing 500 resources in AWS, you're probably already paying for AWS. So it's not too bad to say you should pay for Terraform.
Yeah.
But if you're not managing anything, if it's currently all free, you're, I don't know, 1,000 resources, this then puts a cost into it. So maybe that's probably the only downside is the resource limit now.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how much, and then standard is pay per resource. What is that cost?
What are you
Can I
talking about?
find that out? So the standard tier, so there's free and then there's standard. The standard tier is pay per managed resource.
Can we see
By
plans? There we
if you
go.
scroll
All
up,
right.
oh, did you find the?
So the standard.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny amount of money per hour per resource. First 500 resources are free.
Okay, this is
Which
not
I
bad then.
suppose
This is not bad.
It's an interesting way to do it, that you get charged per hour. So if you create a resource and then you don't touch it for ages, Terraform, although I guess that's not really what you should be doing with Terraform, you still get charged that
So you'd be playing
0.014 cents an hour.
Assuming this
But if you
is
put,
AWS, you be paying AWS bills and
but if you put the state in S3, then you
Isn't it?
wouldn't. Then it's not managed resource.
Well,
Like
so it's only stuff that lives in TFC state is counted as managed resource.
that must be. That must be because there's no other way they could know what a resource is. Because like when you go to the organization, there's the list of resources.
Surely if it can store the state remotely, it can poll the state, so it can know what resources are managed. Be an interesting distinction to make.
Not that I think we should be trying to bypass this thing, and at the point where you're making 500 resources through Terraform Cloud, you should probably pay for your Terraform runs, so they can afford to run this service. I don't want anyone to think I'm not like we shouldn't be paying people, but
My brain would have just gone more for a resource per run pricing rather than per hour. So you get charged for the sort of alterations.
maybe the storage is the expensive part for them. Maybe the runs cost nothing. It's actually storing everyone's state files. They probably have petabytes worth of state files now in their storage. The amount of people that use Terraform Cloud.
How big were your state files the other day you were messing with, Wally? They're like 14, like 15 meg.
Bruh. Yeah. Oh, you remember the size? Yeah. But
I think they used to be like 20 meg. Like
yeah, because we've been slowly moving everything away. And instead of 20 minutes run, I think you get like 10 minutes run now. So yeah, we get
and it
there.
used to be a 40-minute run.
Oh yeah,
That
my
is
bad.
impressive for a JSON file.
Well, it's the reading of the JSON file.
Yeah.
Like the reading of the file took 40 minutes. The rest of it took no time at all. It was the before Terraform 13 when I annoyingly know this stuff because I had to look into it. Terraform 13 Hashicorp did a lot of improvements in the way the graph is being built. So any code that runs before Terraform 13 is really slow at building the initial graph. Certainly when you have tens of thousands of resources in one Terraform module. Just like building that graph takes forever. As soon as you get past Terraform 13, I think Terraform 8, is there Terraform 18? Yeah, I think it's 13, another one. They did lots of improvements in the way that graph is built.
They went to major release. I can't remember. I think it's 1.3 is the latest major.
But I can't remember what the last 0 point was.
1.4. I think we're on 1.4 now.
Yeah, they were 1.4.
1.46, I think. Yeah. As part of
You should
doing
know this stuff.
migration, obviously, I know that when I installed Terraform for someone recently, we had to get 1.46.
They are on Terraform 1.5 beta 1.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
come on.
last pre-release was 0.15.5.
No.
It must be when check comes out. Oh, 1.15. Maybe it was 1.15 that did the thing.
Yeah, the mistake I usually make is that when I'm referring to the versions, I usually forget there's 0 before it, so it kind of messes me up sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking,
Yeah,
11.15. So
yeah, you went version 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
yeah,
1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
exactly. So
They're
yeah,
going to hit the Windows issue where they're going to get to Terraform 11 point. They're going to get to Terraform 13 point something, and then have to go to Terraform 16.x because the rest of them would break something. Legacy code. It's why we don't have Terraform 9. Why we
right.
don't have Windows 9. Sorry.
Terraform 9. We're a long way for that.
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be an 11.0.0 for the same reason there's no Windows 9.
I wonder if what the next major release would be. It'd have to be something that you're changing the way the graphs are built in a fundamental way that will break a lot of stuff.
But with how they've done the moved block, and actually the graph, because the graph is built every run, I don't think the graph would cause anything. I suppose if they baked the graph, So the graph would run, and then they could see like how the graph was compared to how it is going to be. Would then let you do an update, like smaller update to the graph, or if you've not, if you're only changing a value on a dependency on one resource, you don't have to rebuild the graph.
Rebaking graphs into modules and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
is interesting.
By the
Then
way,
it, yeah,
has any of you tried to actually generate the graphs for any of your clients so far?
I have the massive repo we were talking about that was
Yeah.
took 40 minutes to build. I have built that graph.
Really? And how did it look?
It was incomprehensible.
Ah, I'm yet to try that because I was trying that with the client I'm currently on, obviously, with the old repository that we have, and it just didn't work. So I thought maybe you guys would have tried.
No, I think I've certainly managed to get it to work before. I don't know if it was that one or a smaller one. Um, I certainly don't think it's necessary. Like, I don't think anyone would ever need to build that graph to like build the picture of the graph.
It's good for people that are new to the repository or new to the team. Like sometimes, because you know when you're new to the team, like you get people here saying, "Oh, can I see a graph? Is there anywhere where documentation about what is inside this, that?" Especially in the place I'm working currently on, where we have everything in one repository. So which means, I mean, obviously we're moving away
I
from that now, but it will be easier for people to know, okay, what it is, what's inside.
I don't think Totem graph is a good architecture diagram.
It's
Love
something.
the
It's
art.
better than nothing. That's the way I look at it. If somebody asks me, because you get that, anybody joins the team, so they obviously while they are still being onboarded, they want to read documentation whatsoever. Rather than saying there's nothing, here you go. Have fun with that.
And and the response to that is you should have good documentation about what your architecture looks like.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pass that on. But
No,
yeah,
which is it's hard to build documentation when you're in the middle of where you were to where you want to be. When you're in that middle stage is when the documentation is the worst because all the old documentation isn't right and you're not where you want to be, so there's no point writing new documentation. So it's just kind of like hope for the best.
also we need
Read Terraform.
you need someone to actually be free for that to do the whole documentation part. Everyone is literally busy with something. So it's like, when do you
You
write it?
should
I
make time as part of your process to do documentation because if you don't, you're just making your life harder later on when you come back to something you haven't touched in a few months and you go, well, what the hell was I doing here? And have to try and figure it all out from code rather than just reading up a doc that tells you exactly what's going on. Or
Yeah.
if
well,
you want to give it to a new team member,
people say that about like Jira tickets, like the story tickets, the story, yeah, that you shouldn't have a ticket for documentation the same way you shouldn't have a ticket for testing because the ticket shouldn't be done until documentation and testing is done. And if you make another ticket for it, the work's just never going to be done. The ticket is never going to be prioritized. But if the big piece of work isn't done until it's documented, the documentation has to happen. But getting a client to accept, getting a project owner to accept that, when all they want is the big features to get done, is complicated sometimes.
And remember, based on what you are saying about your team, where you get a ticket and you have to close it at the end, regardless whether it's done or not. If you include documentation and all of that in it, that's it. It will never
Oh no,
get closed.
we have tickets in a couple of sprints time to do our documentation. Don't worry about
Oh, fair enough.
I think when I joined my project shortly after, we were trying to do a big bit, and we had a month where we essentially just did documentation, fix any bugs that came up with customer requests, and then just did docs and wrote up how everything worked. But then the trouble with if you kind of do it in big chunks like that, things change, and if you don't update it when you go, we're now starting to have people come to us and go, "We followed your documentation." It's like, oh yeah, that changed, and it hasn't been updated, which
it.
is
It's why living docs is so important, which granted, there was a point when people asked me how something worked, and I was like, just read the code. Like the code has been well written. You should be able to understand what it's doing.
I think it took me a week of reading the code of my current project to understand what it was doing, and that was just sitting there, going through, doing little speculative runs, and seeing what changed. And I still don't think I fully understand everything that goes on in that code.
Don't think anyone understands how that
But
code works.
do you think like when you encounter like a situation where the code gets complicated, in this case obviously Terraform code, is that worth considering where you now look at maybe converting it into CDK? When is good time to use
That,
CDK
that is
actually?
a good segue.
Yeah.
It is something I'm looking at. So the code we have is the reason why it's so complicated is it's doing stuff that Terraform's not really designed to do on its own. It can do it, so it's sort of a lot of logical processing. So it's working out strings and whether you should configure auth methods in certain ways. It will build this resource if that resource has been configured in a certain way. And it's not really what Terraform is designed to do. Really, you should be passing that through something beforehand, and your Terraform should just get a list of the resources. It shouldn't be. It should know the state, or you should define the state at runtime, I guess, in a clear sense. But the idea behind the code we have is the users can fill out a very limited set of variables and get a fully fledged sort of working environment, which is a nice aim because then your users don't need to know Terraform, but it ends up with this very messy code that doesn't do anything. And I think the problem I have most with it is it's very hard to debug because Terraform's error statements for or things that have been formatted wrong are very hard, and you can't really just put debug statements. You can do outputs in regular Terraform, but if that outputs a local inside a for loop that changes, it's very hard to pinpoint it as an output.
It's worth saying this code is like 5 levels of nested tertiary statements. So knowing where tertiary statement is a single line if statement, knowing where one starts and one ends within for loops, within other tertiary statements, within other for loops is I looked at that code and then went to the person that wrote it and asked him questions over if he couldn't understand it.
Yeah. If he ever leaves, it's going to be a real tough time.
I suppose my thought on the CDK is you should use it when you need to do pre-plan processing. So if you need to do any like logic, certainly like big logic before the plan is done, before the Terraform plan runs, that's when it's a good time to use it. I suppose the main time I've tried to use it is I've tried to have a Terraform file that will read every single Python script in a subdirectory and make build lambdas and modules from it in a way that means I can just be like, here is a mass of like YAML config files, build my application for me. I had issues with it because it was far more complicated than what the CDK wants, and I think I needed to rebuild my folder structure, which I didn't really want to do.
Couldn't you have used just lambda normal lambda function with Terraform and then use archive? So archive.
No, yeah, no. So I wanted to do that, but all I wanted to do is for every folder,
Yeah.
for every folder in this subfolder, and then in that folder we'll have a file that has the config of the Lambda file inside of it. You need to read that config file and then build the resources for that Lambda, like if it's a GET request, what the endpoint is, what permissions it needs access to, all of that from within the Lambda, from within the code. So then I could just make, if I need to deploy another Lambda with another endpoint, I just need to add I just need to add a Python script and a YAML file or JSON file, and that's it.
Fair enough.
Which I spent a week on and then was like, this is getting far too complicated, and then gave up. Maybe someday I'll go back to it. But
I guess
So,
the hard thing about choosing when to move to CDK is there's two clear points at the end where you have at the very start when you're writing Terraform and things are very simple, you should just stick with Terraform code. There's no question your CDK is not worth your time. And at the other end, things are very complicated, and you should be using the CDK because it will give you better processing, better error handling, and just cleaner sort of picture of what's going on. But the trouble is, it's not very simple or very complicated. You have the whole spectrum in between, and where exactly you switch over from using Terraform to the CDK isn't really defined. And the trouble is, you probably will end up going further into this is complicated enough that we should be using CDK before switching, because you then have to kind of re-architect your code. But it's also very hard to start off from the very beginning using CDK because it's not really worth the extra effort at the beginning. So it's kind of an odd product.
I think it's worth saying there was no overlap between HCL, Terraform, and CDK. Like some of the resources are called the same, but I had to work out how to deploy some resources. I had to go into the GitHub repos for the CDK resources and look at the files to see what the things were called that were the same as Terraform. Like the documentation isn't really there either. But if you can get it to work, you can do some fancy things. Though we were talking about testing earlier. That's also where stuff like TerraTest is useful. So if you are rebuilding a system from Terraform into CDK, you at least know that it is back to where it started.
Barnaby, I think that's a hint for you. It's telling you need to make sure you create tests as well.
I've pushed to create tests, and it's something that people go, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then because it doesn't functionally change anything at the time you do it, they go, oh, we can do that later when all these other new features that we want to build. And then there'll be more new features come in before it gets time to write tests. So I agree, testing is useful and important, but trying to get a client to give you time to write them when they don't necessarily see the value in them is often quite tricky.
The issue isn't also the fact that you might not get the time to write it, but then you might end up being the only person that knows how to write TerraTest, because we also have people in teams where you only have like only 2 people that know a bit of Terraform and the rest don't. So therefore, if you're asking everyone now to start writing TerraTest, like, yeah, that's
Another problem with TerraTest, which is why I maybe wouldn't suggest it for most use cases and suggest just something like PyTest wrapping API calls, is TerraTest spins up and destroys the resources. So if you're messing with AWS and you need an account for TerraTest, if you're messing with something like Vault, you need a Vault cluster set up that TerraTest can run against, because otherwise you're just going to be, because it will spin up and destroy. Which obviously, if you've got like Vault Enterprise, you can just give it a namespace. And I think doing test correctly, you should be able to run multiple tests against the same AWS account, because it will use random strings.
How about we write a TerraTest for the Vault cluster we created for our company?
Yeah,
that would be.
I think
TerraTest
is something worth doing.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a long web hole. And you say for a company, something I was chatting to Wally about earlier, I have this Raspberry Pi. And I know we just spun up Vault on Kubernetes. But I kind of want a personal Vault cluster, and spinning Vault up in AWS.
Enterprise, by the way.
I want a personal Vault cluster. I'm happy to open source. But setting up in AWS has a cost that I can't really justify spending on something that I want to call like once a week. But a Raspberry Pi can technically run it, and it won't be high.
How many users can we have on the free tier Vault cluster?
As many as you want. You only don't have namespaces. Like I could run a full like production Vault cluster off 5 Raspberry Pis.
Can we not
Your
use
API calls may.
there's a few things that are missing. So it's stuff like disaster recovery and automatic backups that are missing. But you can still write a cron job that runs the command that does
Well,
backups and stuff like that.
I was thinking S3 as a backend. So you've got S3, the S3's however many nines worth of backups, and KMS as auto unseal. This probably isn't something I'll do on the stream because we set a Vault cluster up the last 2 weeks. But I think it's an it sounds like something quite fun, and it's something that certainly over the next couple of weeks I'm going to play with.
It sounds to me like you both favor Vault a lot because every conversation Vault always comes up.
Always goes well. I'm spending most of my time on Vault.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I'm working on at the moment as well. So.
It'll be console next. I have my
I think you'll be having a conversation with yourself there.
I
The
have
console.
the voucher. I can now take the console
you got-
test.
What? I requested for one as well. I mean, unofficially, yeah.
Within the next 6 months, I plan on getting the console set.
That's a long time frame, though.
Yeah, I just heard my client may be extended, so maybe I'm not going to hit the bench as soon as I thought.
Is that a good thing or a
Less
bad
full
thing in this
time.
case?
We'll see. I mean, I won't get console knowledge as quickly as I thought I would be able to.
Ah,
Yeah, no, and if the Vault works on that, I think setting up Hashicorp servers on Raspberry Pi is maybe quite a fun thing to do.
fair enough. Yeah. I mean, we'll attempt it this Thursday, depending on how far we can get. We'll see. We'll let you know.
Oh yeah. That if I had 5 Raspberry Pis, technically if I had 10 Raspberry Pis, I could build a DR. I could build a full DR Raspberry Pi setup, as long as the other 5 Raspberry Pis were at someone else's house. If I had 5 at my house, 5 at one of your houses, we could have a full DR Vault setup with Raspberry Pis.
I will give you
Probably we
my
should get
address.
6
Why?
and turn one into a HSM.
Oh wow.
Yes. Oh yeah, with the HSM module as well. Wow, this is such a stupid idea, but now I'm like, do I just buy
Yep. Send it to
7
my.
Raspberry Pis?
Yep. Send it to my
Well-
address. I'm fine with it.
So send Barnaby the HSM, while I can have the 1 set of 5. I'll have the other set of 5.
No, it wouldn't
set
it
up
make
a
sense to send Barnaby there itself because we live close by.
No, but the HSM should be somewhere else.
Oh, fair enough.
It's splitting all the splitting everything up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's get a bigger network switch for that.
Well, I'll only be sending you 1 HSM, but yes, I do have a spare 6-port switch somewhere. No, I'm not buying 4 more Raspberry Pis just to have a highly available Vault cluster in my house.
Also, I thought there was a shortage on Raspberry Pis. Or is it
I
gone
think-
now?
I assume it's gone now. There was when we had the standard silicon shortage to hit everyone.
Because I think there was a point where I wanted the Raspberry Pi Zero, and yeah, I couldn't. It was out of stock, so just couldn't. I still actually only have one so far. I wanted more, but it's fine. Anyways,
I keep buying Raspberry Pis and just not using them.
I don't have any because I feel like this is something like that sounds fun, but I know I'll just get one and it will sit in a drawer and not do anything.
nah, you
That's
have to
me.
find something. So you have to find some use for it. I use mine for as Pi-hole, and before that, I had it as a web server for my normal portfolio website, and that was it.
Oh, the website I bought my Pi from before is no longer a website. It's no longer one of the recommended Python website, Raspberry Pi websites.
They used to sell them out of a vending machine at my university,
Raspberry
which
Pi.
was quite funny. Yeah, you just go and buy a computer from a vending machine.
That's wild. You guys are lucky, man. Every time you bring up your
That-
university, I'm just upset.
Oh wow, yeah. So Raspberry Pis are currently in a shortage. Oh wait,
Yeah.
more stock available. Lead times, which is approximately the 24th of the first. The 22nd of the first. We've
You
passed
mean of January?
that. Oh no, that's 24. That's that's next summer. That's next January
Yeah,
is when the
Wow.
lead time is.
yeah. I told you. Like, I keep like I get news because I buy my pies from them from their website, so I get the news on the shortage. But
I think
yeah,
I got my pies when I did. No, granted, I bought my pie from a shopping center in Japan, and then the other one, I got it. I pre-ordered before the first Raspberry Pi was announced. I pre-ordered it,
oh nice.
so I have one of the very first gens, which is absolutely rubbish.
Yeah, I mean it has its use. You can have a use for it.
I ran MAME on it at one point, but I feel we're getting slightly off track.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, by the way, does that mean we'll stop using Vagrant now? Because obviously we've all tried, I mean, except Barnaby, me and you have already worked with it now. I think it's out of my system now. I'm okay with it. Now it's time to move on using something else.
I like Vagrant as a I want to spin up something locally. Like I think Vagrant is obviously quite old. I think it's quite good as a like I want to spin up locally and send it to you, but we don't want to worry about Docker. Because while Docker and Kubernetes is nice, the fact we spent two of these episodes just trying to get Vault set up on it, which, and then if we want to get so we got Vault set up on EKS on Kubernetes. If we wanted to then deploy that somewhere else, we'll be limited to stuff like EKS, GKS, AKS, whatever KS you desire. Whereas
Yeah.
Vagrant, if we're using Ansible to set up, which really we should have been, we can then deploy on something like EC2 or whatever GCP's versions of. Like it's if you want to deploy it on a server, like I wanted to set up on this Pi, I'd be much better off messing with Vagrant locally and then just pointing Ansible at the Pi than something like Docker, which running Docker on top of this to then run Vault is probably a waste of resources.
I have messed with I think when I was messing with some Aqua stuff, slightly different tech stack, but instead of spinning up an AKS cluster, I just got an EC2 box and put K3S on it, and that was significantly cheaper and also not particularly hard to do. I think it was 3 commands on the box after spinning
Yep,
it up, and it was
yep.
like a third of the price.
But I know that
That's what I
obviously
did as
Aqua
well.
is
Yeah.
I know Aqua is very um, container specific, like that's how it's kind of designed.
Yeah.
But there has to be a performance cost. Like you must have to get a slightly more powerful box because of all the Kubernetes, Docker stuff
Yeah,
that
there'd
also has
always
to
be
run.
some overhead.
Whereas if all you want to do is run one application, surely it's better to just run it as close to the bare metal as possible.
You're going to get your soldering board out and put in all the logic gates and run it that way.
Yeah, who needs an OS? This is gonna be like purely just Vault. Vault should run on Scratch. It's a Go application. Surely I can get a Scratch-based
Yeah.
Go.
Well, the way you normally do it, you'd compile it and then you'd use like a Go container to compile it and then restrip the container and just leave the binary behind.
From scratch.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe steal some certificates on your way so you can communicate over TLS.
there must be a way in.
We didn't think about
I
that.
think there is actually a way in with a Raspberry Pi to run just a from scratch image.
I know a few people have set them up as like little Kubernetes clusters, so it's I imagine it's fairly common use case with people just to link a load together as a little cluster and use them for distributed compute.
Yeah. But then you need at least one as the control node. Like if all I have is one, I was just thinking if there's a way of going, this is the image, like this is your image, this is your 3 lines of OS that run the image, and that's it. Maybe something's worth thinking into.
You know,
What else did we?
Actually, I was just
Oh,
thinking about the thing you showed us last Thursday about using
Vault
what was it?
SSH OTP.
Yeah, that don't know why I skipped
Those are
ahead.
words that mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but it's really good. I've been thinking about it a lot. Thinking how can we implement that at work? I mean,
So,
sorry, on client side.
uh, as all those words mean probably nothing to anyone.
Mhm.
Vault SSH OTP or Vault. I was about to say what SSH stood for. What does SSH stood for? Secure session host.
Oh, we had this last time
something
as
like
well.
that.
That's
I don't know. Vault SSH one-time password is a way of connecting to a server and using Vault to authenticate to that server.
SSH is
secure
secure shell.
shell.
There's no H.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Secure
it's a
so
secure
shell.
secure S,
shell.
but I think
That's interesting.
the SS was probably
Because
tarnished.
SS, yeah, don't want to be SS. Yes, so it is a way that you SSH into a box. It asks you for password. You then log into Vault, ask Vault for the password. You pass the password into the box. The box then, as part of its authentication loop, which I very barely understand, but just enough to debug some silly issues I was having, it then talks to Vault. Then it sends that one-time password to Vault, going, is this authenticated with this user, with this IP? It gives a whole lot of information. And then Vault goes back to the box, goes back to the server going, yes, they're authenticated, no, they're not. And then if you're authenticated, the box lets you log in. So the box has no knowledge of how you log into it. It is purely Vault that lets you deal with logging in.
I've,
Something I didn't realize about this is you don't need a Vault token on the box either. The box does not need to authenticate with Vault.
Does Vault push to the box?
Yeah, so there's the Vault SSH helper command that you run, and then I imagine within the one-time password there is some level of authentication.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. I'll definitely say, obviously, the explanation was a bit long, and obviously, you need high imagination to be able to like even visualize what you just said. Maybe it's worth us having a demo session on that. So we have some labs queued up, anyways, that we need to go through.
I would like to do a Vault SSH OTP and also the Vault SSH cert at the same time. Because when we did a demo internally in place we work, and that was the question of what's the difference. And I have thought about it since. I have some vague ideas of what I think the difference is, but it would be quite nice to sit down and actually just like do a demo of let's set both of these up and see what the differences are.
Fair? I mean, you can do all of that on your Raspberry Pi once it's ready.
Yeah, have Vagrant and Raspberry Pi talk to each other. Yeah.
Right.
Would Nomad do networking between Pis? Nomad? Of like Hashi's answer to orchestration, that kind of stuff.
So you need to have console to do the service mesh, and so it is Envoy,
Yeah, Envoy,
whatever it's called,
Envoy, the
is
proxy.
the proxy system. Then you need console on top of that to do the service mesh. Then on top of that, you have Nomad to do the orchestration.
They still use Envoy as the proxy because I thought they used isn't there a proxy now built into console that they can use?
Maybe when I looked into it, because I tried to set up, I delved into console a little bit, but not enough to really know. And anything I could see about proxy was Envoy, even though like Boundary is a proxy. I
That's
suppose
what I was thinking.
Boundary is more of a bastion than a proxy. Um, but I have a feeling that if Envoy isn't, if they haven't replaced Envoy, they will at some point with their own, even if they still support Envoy. Because if you look into the docs for the proxy, you can make your own. Like there is actually the docs of like how you interface your proxy with their system.
Hmm.
But that is far beyond my knowledge.
Yeah. Networking I find kind of interesting, but also you can just delve as far as you want down that rabbit hole, and it just
Talking
gets
of
more complicated as you go.
talking of networking rabbit holes, something I realized, Boundary, which is their Bastion proxy thing that lets you send traffic from a Boundary agent through a Boundary server to your machine, only supports TCP. It does not currently support UDP.
We're having something weird with networking the other day. Actually, we were looking at Vault audit devices, and the socket one. We found something that we thought was just a little bit odd. So you can send audit data through UDP or TCP, but it doesn't have any TLS encryption. And the secret data is hashed, but there are still some things in there that are identifiable, and they don't hash integers or booleans. Booleans, there's not really much point in hashing because you work out the hash for true, you can probably work out, and the hash for false, you can pick out which one's which. But integers has a little bit of a security hole because credit card numbers are integers.
I think you should technically store credit card numbers as a string. It's one of those really weird, but it's if you had I think secure numbers you're meant to store as a string.
Yeah, but it's sort of one of those things you're meant to. It doesn't mean you necessarily are. But the bit that sort of interested about is sort of why they don't just wrap it in TLS or in TLS. Because you're sending it over the network, it's not. I don't know what the compute overhead for TLS is, but it's a few more network calls to establish the connection and do the handshake. But after that, it's not. I don't think it's particularly more expensive than just a TCP stream.
Yeah, for TCP, it's weird they don't TLS. TLS over UDP is
there's no
weird.
TLS. Can you even TLS over UDP? I guess you could. The first bit of the stream wouldn't be able to be UDP, surely, because you couldn't do a handshake without getting anything back.
So, yes, you could do TLS over UDP. No, it's probably not a good idea. Because it would have to be individual requests. Or you do something like a Cerberus system, where if you did TLS over UDP but used something like Vault Transit as the encryption system, as long as both the systems could talk to Vault Transit, you don't need a handshake.
At that point, it's not. Is it really TLS? It's just encryption.
But it's doing what TLS is doing.
It's the same thing, yeah.
But then at that point, you have to worry about encrypting both sides and extra steps than what the base TLS protocols let you do.
Yeah, and if you're firing every event, coding your own encryption all the time, I guess you could, if you were good at it, you could get it reasonably efficient. But I don't know.
You can encrypt byte streams in a way that's not as long as the byte stream isn't too fast, which I imagine it won't be because of what the system is. I believe you can just be like byte encrypt, next byte encrypt, next byte encrypt. Just do that, and as long as your byte stream's not faster than the encryption, it would technically work. It may be a little bit dodgy.
It'd be interesting to find what the limit is on that, and obviously it vary on what you're running it on to see how much what percentage of speed you lose or potential space you lose by encrypting everything.
I could see Vault no encrypting all the devices going. They should be within your own network. Like the general use cases is you're within the Great Firewall. So
I guess that although they're for a company that's really pushing zero trust to say then you're within your own firewall feels like a little bit of you're not really practicing what you're preaching here. You're telling me that I should do zero trust, but you're saying actually we're not going to bother doing it ourselves.
Yeah, it's probably just an oversight. I mean, heck, just fire yourself. Just open up the open source thing.
You want to go and patch it in.
I wonder if there's an issue about that.
They might be. I'd need to get one of my other laptops out to look up because I think I have a couple of emails flying back and forth about it.
It is TLS. Or was it? What did you say it was an audit method?
TLS socket audit.
There is not. Well, that I've not found it, but there is not a open issue on GitHub. I love doing that but anytime someone asks me a question about a problem they found on something like Terraform, so I'll immediately go open up the GitHub and search the issue, and then if I find an issue from what they're saying, I'll just link it to them. It's like, hey, here's the problem you found. Certainly when it's a problem that's been fixed, but just because we're on an older version of Terraform, we still hit it.
I remember that. It wasn't this client, but I remember one of my previous clients. Like we quite often have issues, and you look it up and they go, "This isn't an issue anymore." You kind of delve back further into the docs and you go, "Oh, it was an issue in this version." So you know, so there's this weird workaround. But then eventually you'd upgrade. And you go, "Why is this here?" And you have to take it all out again because the issue that was needed the workaround had been fixed.
Yeah, I had that one point where we within a Python script, we had to like go in and edit a Python module to like change a line, and then the platform we were running it on updated their Python version, and because we hard coded the Python version into that change, it just took down the entire platform. That was fun, but luckily I've now learned that from that mistake and won't do that again.
Or you're just saving it up for the logic bomb.
Well, I don't think it's my logic bomb if it requires AWS to update something for it to go off.
You just don't know when your logic bomb's going to detonate.
Maybe it'll still be working for the company. Who knows?
It's when they extend your contract and you have to quickly go in and remove it before it becomes a you problem.
Or it then becomes a week's worth of work because you're like, oh, that seems very difficult. Give me some time to go fix it.
You're going to give contracts a bad name with that attitude.
Just increment the logic bomb again and leave it for the next time.
Anyways, guys, I was just checking out the Hashicorp website, and on their events page, I can see Hashiconf early bird tickets are now on sale.
Yeah, they've been on sale for like 2 weeks.
Anyone going?
It is so expensive.
I know. Still want to go though. It would be nice.
Where is it based this year?
I think it's still the same place.
San Fran, no, San Fran, I think. San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco online. Oh, I really want to go.
I quite liked San Francisco when I went previously, but I don't think unless I can get a sponsored ticket from somewhere, I'm probably not going to pay the $700 out of my own pocket to.
Hold on. Oh yeah, it is. No, at this point it's $700, but after the early birds is over, it's actually $900, $899.
But it's not just £700. It's also a flight to San Francisco, a hotel for 4 days. Like,
yeah, that's a lot of money. You can just watch it online for free, I'm pretty sure, so you can catch most of the talk.
It's not the same.
You miss out on the networking, and you probably will watch a little bit less because of just you're not there, so other things you can do. Whereas if you're at the event, you go to the talks, you've kind of made that effort. Whereas if it's just turning on a stream, that there's less cost to forfeit if you don't turn on that stream. Whereas if you paid a couple of grand to go see it, then you kind of feel obliged to listen.
I think at some point I would like to go to it, but just even if the ticket was free, even if I had a free ticket to get into the convention, the cost of travel Though, have you seen? Talking of that, have you seen they've done the Hashicorp sponsorship?
Yeah, I saw that.
So they will
Yeah,
sponsor people to go to HashiConf that
yeah.
can't afford it. So they'll pay for transport and for the ticket,
I was tempted
which
to
is such
apply
a good
for it.
idea. You wouldn't be able to get in.
I
It's
know.
such a good idea for like small companies or people that are just trying to get into the industry to like go and experience something like this. Um,
Do you know what the criteria are for the sponsorship? Because I think there was a couple of people I chatted to the last time when we went that sort of seemed very like that. It was like two like startup owners that had just gone. They're like, oh, we're looking at using Terraform. And we're now at Hashicorp.
I I was like, this does not apply to me, and I didn't actually read it, but
Yeah, I didn't read it, but
yeah,
it's a good question actually. I thought I wouldn't be eligible, which is why I didn't bother. But now I might be eligible. Let's just check.
you won't be eligible.
I
I think
might
it's
be
interesting
eligible.
information.
Leave me. I'll definitely be eligible. Let's see.
You need to found a startup before HashiConf. Get it off
is
the ground to
is
be
this not a
eligible.
startup?
This is a
It's not
startup.
business technically. I don't know.
It is business.
Maybe we're just trying to angle your way in, whatever the crux.
Yeah. Because by the way, for anyone that plans on going, don't underestimate the small talks. The ones that are not in the big halls is like, what do you call them?
Maybe
Like
like
in the
hallway
stand?
talks,
Yeah, hallway talks. They're actually quite
hallway
good. Like,
track. That's what it was
yeah.
called.
I think I'm more interested in the smaller, like the more nitty gritty talks than the hey, I'm a big consultancy and this is what I did in this bank. It's like, well, that's what I do. Like, I'm not like the how you can use Terraform. I'm less interested in than the this is what Terraform. This is like some interesting feature about console or some weird thing you can do in Nomad.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there's a couple where it was people that they're kind of doing it on a more individual level, and they go, "These are all the weird tips and things that I've
yeah,
learned from doing this for a long period of time, and the mistakes I constantly see people making." Rather than, "Yay, we've delivered this to X customers to do X thing."
yeah, you see a little, I don't know, see a little bit of them, and I'm like, I mean, because I follow the Hashicorp YouTube, which I didn't realize I wasn't doing for a long time. They promote the talks on there, and most of them are a bit like, I should probably watch these, but I don't know how interested I am in most of them.
Sometimes I put them on and watch on the side, but also like LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I follow some of their stuff. So like, and they have their own podcast sometimes. I mean, not sometimes, they have their own podcast, which I follow
Yeah,
sometimes as well. And someone good to follow as
that's
well would be Brian Krausen. Obviously, he's a Hashicorp ambassador, and also he puts out good content. So I'm a big fan of
Is he
his.
paying you?
But I just love his work. There's
Starting to
nothing,
question.
there's nothing wrong with it, guys. There's nothing wrong with this. This, this is
is
actually
it signed
also.
though?
Oh yeah, yeah, it is signed actually. It actually is signed, and I even have proof of it. I was hoping I'll pass my vault exam, and then I would just post that with the picture of him and me, handshake, But yeah, well, we're still waiting for the results. So yeah,
It's been ages. And so it's irritating because I kind of wanted to know if I'd failed quickly to do the
I am positive you
exam
passed.
again.
I am positive you passed. Don't worry about it.
I'm surprised you guys. Maybe because it's the beta, but I'm shocked you guys haven't heard yet.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it is the beta, and they're
they
probably just going to review
and
them in a big block and
and they
see. And I don't
specifically
think the
said
pass marks.
they actually
Yeah,
highlighted in the email that it will take two. Actually, even during the exam, before you took the exam as well, they said it can take up to 2 months. So we just have
Okay,
to be patient.
I think mine was a month.
But you found out
So,
straight away though, like you passed. Like as soon as you take.
but if not many people are doing the um, actual one, like if more people are probably doing the beta one than they're doing the actual one, just because of they're giving
It's
out free
free.
tests for what is a £400-500
Yeah.
exam.
Yeah, yep. I'm not complaining about that. They should do the same for Terraform. Oh, is any of you plan on taking the new Terraform?
The Pro, when it comes out, I'll give it
No,
a go.
sorry, the
No,
new version of this Terraform Associate. My bad.
version 3.
Yeah.
I need to take it before the end of the year.
Okay.
That's when my associate one's out. So before the end of the year, I will need to sit the re. They did a whole blog post of like how you retake the exams now because they've done a new thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
kind
I
of
think my
hoping
Terraform is expired, so I might have to take it.
the Pro comes out before my associate expires and just take that instead.
But you still need the
Ooh.
associate.
Yeah, you still need a life associate at the current,
Yeah,
like,
I've got a year and a bit left of my associate, so
Well,
fair enough.
they started talking about the pro like a year ago, didn't they? And they like
yeah,
sign up for the beta for the pro, and then.
Time ago. But apparently,
But I want.
hearing Brian Krausen talking about it, he says it's like it takes a while, like when they're working on these things, it
Oh,
takes a
gotcha.
while.
But
So
also, I wonder if some of the new features that have come out for Terraform, like the check, which I don't think we talked about, but there's the check block that they're adding, and they've added some other like cool features like the post steps, the pre and post steps
yeah,
now. So I wonder if they're re-architecting a little bit of like how you should use Terraform. In which case, that will be in the Pro, because also the post task, they're like things you can trigger after. Um, that also is probably going to be in the Pro.
that'd be interesting because it'd be more sort of set up towards sort of Terraform Enterprise and Terraform Cloud deployments, I would have thought, than just the associate, which is how to use Terraform.
Which I did the chip, and there was nothing about the UI. It was just about setting up the server. Whereas now you could do quite a lot of extra things in TF, TFC, TFE than you could a year ago. So
but
the Pro
yet,
is probably becoming more complex.
most clients are still on their old version of the Terraform Enterprise, so they're not even enjoying the new features yet. So yeah. Anyways,
Drift
guys,
protection, that's another feature.
yeah, guys, let's wrap this up for today. Actually, do you guys have anything else you want to add before we close off?
No closing remarks.
All I was
Nothing
gonna
from me.
say, all I was gonna say is have a good week, everyone. Until next time, hopefully we can do a lab session next time. On what? We'll figure out along the way. But for now, I wish everyone a great week and see you all next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Twitch and on YouTube. And maybe on Twitter as well if you guys put your handles on Twitter. Or
We have a
LinkedIn
Twitter.
as well. Yeah.
I don't have a Twitter handle.
Oh God. Okay. Forget Twitter. LinkedIn, please. Follow us on LinkedIn.
So isn't it all Mastodon now? Isn't that the like hip thing that everyone's going towards?
Which one? What?
Mastodon.
Oh, I thought it was Truth
We're
Social.
we're trumping now. Is it trumping? Well, no, it's tooting. Instead of tweeting, it's tooting.
Okay. Anyways, this is where we say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.